Hey Amy, hey Michael. My name is Neil. I'm with Dorkaholics.
Hi.
Hi, Neil.
At Dorkaholics, we believe that there is a dork in everyone, and it's our job to bring that dork out into the world.
Right.
Say no more.
To kick things off, I wanted to get to know both of you better and ask what made each of you a dork growing up.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty deep for me. Definitely, yeah, I grew up on a farm. I mean, I was an only kid. I grew up on a farm and yeah, I kind of just lived alone and told myself stories all the time. I lived probably way too late. I was, well into my teens before I start, understanding there was sort of a world outside of my own, like sort of cultural creation. I also, boy, I read, I was a big reader of comics. I was a big reader of Tolkien series when I found them. I found Cracked magazine when I was probably about 8, and from there it spread like it spread like the plague. And there are too many series for me to sort of explain, but yeah,
Right.
it runs deep. It runs deep in my family.
Yeah,
And Michael,
same with me. A lot of the things Amy talked about, like Cracked Magazine and Mad Magazine, were huge for me. There was another one called Crazy. I remember there was a magazine called Crazy that had the same kind of format. I read comics rabidly. I used to collect pop bottles from the neighborhood and like, take them to the store to get the deposits so I could buy more comic books. And I was glued to movies. I've always been a huge Steven Spielberg fan. Television shows. I mean, the first thing that really hit me was maybe Fantasy Island was like, something that I couldn't not get enough of. And even still now, if it's on, I'll watch it. And the Greatest American Hero, which was a superhero show in the early 80s that never ever got tired of. And so genre material was always present. And also my great embarrassing thing is like in professional wrestling was a monstrously important thing to my father.
Huge deal.
Um,
Huge.
who believed it was real until the day he died. Um, and even now, I'll admit I watch it from time to time. I love theatrics, any kind of ridiculous show. That's why, like, I love Kiss. They're not the greatest band in the world, but they are the greatest band in the world, and
Yes.
that's the kind of thing I love. I love a spectacle. Yeah.
I really wanted to ask you this question, Michael, because I read that originally the plan for the Sisters Grimm, oh so many few years ago, was to be a TV series, but your wife suggested to do a book first.
Yeah, well, she was the one who finally said do it, but I shopped it around to a bunch of different networks at the time, and everybody kept saying this feels more like a book. You know, you never hear TV executives telling you to do it in something else, but it would make me angry because I have ADHD. The concept of writing a book seemed impossible. I had a fourth grade teacher tell me I'd never be a writer. And like the world wasn't really rooting for me to do this. Um, but my ex-wife at the time said, I think you can do this. I'll help you. And you don't need to really be a great writer. Your editor needs to be a great writer. And so I leaned on Susan Van Meter, who was the editor of all these books, and she taught me how to write a book. And I've been doing it ever since for 20 years.
Wow. Like, I'm really curious how Sisters Grimm evolved in your mind from being, oh, I want this to be a TV show to, all right, I'll make it into a book. And then through the process of having a book series, now
Mhm.
it's finally a TV series.
Yeah.
What was that evolution like in your mind to its manifestation?
I've said this before. You know, the book was optioned almost immediately. I mean, I think it was optioned before it even came out. And, there were a ton of well-meaning people who tried to turn it into a TV show or a movie. Some of their ideas weren't so great. And, but it just wasn't the right fit. There was an energy that was missing. And it didn't actually, and it took us 20 years until Amy came along and Amy was the first person I'll say really got it. Seemed to understand what I had been trying to do all along. And I am fiercely um protective of this series. You know, you're not supposed to treat your books like they're your babies, but I do sometimes, and I wanted this to be something that the fans, 20 years ago would recognize as they sit down with their kids to watch it now. And I think that's what Amy delivered was a book that understood, or as a TV show that understood what the book meant to not only everybody, but to me.
This is a perfect segue for me to ask Amy a question. So I saw that you have a background as a writer on Kid Cosmic, Star versus the Forces of Evil, Wander Over Yonder, as well as live action. And
Mhm.
I just learned today that you were a voracious reader growing up and a world builder in your mind. So how did those experiences translate to finding what sounds like the secret sauce being the showrunner on this series?
Yes, voracious reader, exactly. I'm very, very fussy about books and characters, and I'm kind of famously critical. And I had, I was kind of in between two shows at the time. This came across my desk, and there were several pieces, other shows I was kind of like courting at the time, or were courting me. And I thought that the central characters of these, Rena and Daphne, and even Relda, like, there's a elderly woman who's like a hero of the show. I was like, move aside. This is exactly my flavor of person. Um, and Puck, of course. I mean, Puck is this, just like kind of horror child, like, who's been a 12-year-old boy for 4,000 years. Again, I'm like, that's totally my style of human, or non-human in this case. So I felt like I came to this book from the center of the characters. Like, this is a character driven and decent character who are complex, and they're messy, and they're not exactly likable up front. And for me, that was a big challenge, and I was just kind of tired of the same old stuff. And that's why I wanted to create a series where you see these more complicated beings. So that's why I'm here.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Amy and Michael. I'm really looking forward to watching The Sisters Grimm all over again with my nieces and nephews once it's publicly available.
Yeah, yeah,
Excellent.
October 3rd. Yeah, I'm so glad. Please do.